Welcome and thank you for attending our webinar. We're streaming it live on LinkedIn, hence you just had the double take of me trying to figure out what was happening, why my voice was repeating. Just a quick, just before we kick off, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to drop them in the chat function on the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer them as soon as we can. And last but not least, there'll be 3 polling questions. And when they go live on the screen, you'll see a QR code. And if you just take your mobile phone, the camera function, point it at the QR code, it'll give you a link to click in to answer the multiple choice questions. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just to see how we can compare what everybody is doing. And that's about it. So I'll just hand you over to our practitioners to kickstart the webinar. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Phil Searle. I'm the CEO of Chatbot Partners. Welcome to our session today, webinar today. It's running for an hour. Thank you for joining on this Friday. So what's the purpose of the session today? So this is the topic. So I'll read it just for everyone's benefit. Leveraging process and task mining, AI chatbots and data analytics to turbocharge your business processes. So in other words, the focus of today is on some of the latest trends in what you might call hyper automation or intelligent automation. So in the space, and Chewy Michelle, who's joining me today, will be explaining what that means. But really, technology enablement has been around forever, for decades. But over the last 11 years, we've had the RPA, the robotic process automation trends. We've had many trends around document processing, machine learning, etc. And really what we're focusing on today is how that's evolving as part of a toolkit of intelligent automation, hyper automation tools that you can leverage to, as it says here, improve your business processes. So that's the focus of today's session. We have about an hour. As Lee said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we will endeavor to answer them as we go, or Lee will point us to them through the session or towards the end. So I said, my name is Phil Searle. I'm the CEO and founder of Chatbot Partners. Chatbot is a management consulting business transformation business founded in 2006. So about nearly 17 years ago now. We were acquired by QX Global earlier this year in February 2022. And so we're now part of QX Chatbot Group. And I'll touch on that in a second, but I've been leading business transformation, automation, shared services, and a lot in technology for a long time. I'm a former finance CFO and corporate controller, chief accounting officer, and have run global shared services operations prior to forming Chatbot. So I've seen many of the trends that we'll be talking about in general and specifically over the last few years. But Chewy, do you just want to introduce yourself before we go to the next slide?
Sure, Phil, thank you. I'm Chewy Michel. I lead the intelligent automation practice for Chatbot Partners, QX now, a QX global company. Been doing this for the last 3 years. And prior joining Chatbot, I had the opportunity to run a number of automation programs and projects, including the setup of a number of centers of excellence for RPA, for business analytics and intelligent automation in general. And again, happy Friday and happy to be here.
Thanks, Chewy. So I'm going to just do a couple of intro slides, but Chewy is going to run most of the session today, and then I'll be adding commentary and taking any questions and helping with Q&A as we go through. So I mentioned Chatbot Partners, founded in 2006. I'm based in Austin, Texas, but we do end-to-end business services, business transformation. So the sort of what you might call the legacy Chatbot business is focused very much on the top, has been focused on the top box of business transformation. So we help organizations transform their operating models for back and middle office and more front office these days as part of that whole one office trend. So we do shared services, global business services, COEs, professional and technical. We do project and program management, change management, organizations. So we help organizations design, build, and deploy new operating models. We also have, as I've mentioned, have been in the technology space for many, many years. And that's a range from what I would call the more traditional ERP through the sort of technology enablement, for example, document management, workflow, process management, etc., and then into the more the latest around, as I mentioned, hyper automation, intelligent automation, which is really going to be the main focus of today. And through our partnership, through our acquisition of QX Global, we now have end-to-end business process outsourcing as well across finance and accounting, HR, and IT as well, as we expand going into the next year. So we have an end-to-end solution we're very proud of. The global organization is over 2,500 people, and we have about 90 Chasey consultants within that. Next slide, please, Lee. Okay, just very quickly, this is some of our clients on a page. So we operate across multiple towers and industries, as you can see on here. In the intelligent automation space, RPA space, on the top right, we either do, well, in every engagement we do now, we talk about this. So whether it's part of a specific engagement or it's part of a broader, say, for example, global business services implementation or functional shared services implementation or operating model transformation, we always talk about digital technology and RPA. And then certain clients request specific RPA, intelligent automation, hyper automation projects. So there's a mix in here on the top right-hand side. And in the bottom right, we have some of our BPO clients through our partnership with QX. Next slide, please, Lee. Okay, so just as a recap, what we're talking about today is really focusing on some key areas and some of the questions we get asked a lot about. And that's the latest in task and process mining and how to best leverage it, some best practices, some metrics, relevant metrics, chatbots, including AI, artificial intelligence related chatbots, data analytics and business intelligence and dashboards to help making data-driven decisions, and really where the whole industry and business is going next. So that's the focus of today. And with that, I will hand over to Chewy, who will run through the specific agenda and the content. And as I said, I'll jump back in as appropriate. So Chewy, take it from here. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. And today I'm going to touch on 4 major topics: task and process mining, chatbots, business intelligence, and what's next. Right? And we're going to add some technical, technological, IT component, but most of the conversation is going to rally around what is the benefit for you and how can this set of technologies and methodologies take organizations to the next level. So if we go to the next chart, first I'm going to talk about process diagnostic, task and process mining, and then I'm going to share with you a few client cases. So if you think about discovery, right? So the overarching theme here is discovery. How do you find more opportunities for automation? How do you find opportunities for automation that are going to scale your program? And you always need to go back to the basics, right? And what that basically means, you need to think about individual sub-processes that need to be evaluated to understand the feasibility or viability for automation. So, and this needs to be quantifiable. It's the reason why this is going back to the basics is not all good ideas for automation are necessarily successful bots in production. So that's why you have to go through a methodology that has elements that need to be evaluated. And as you go and evaluate each candidate, you are going to figure out which ones is going to give you an approach and methodology to rank those automations that should be deployed first, and those automations that have the best either financial return on investment or either better viability. So moving to the next chart, this is how it looks like once you go and run individual evaluations, individual assessments for each one of your processes, and you start baking in qualitative factors, financial or economic value factors, as well as viability, then you come up with a quadrant. And what that quadrant basically tells you is which automations have the highest return on investment with the higher economic value, but also very important, how easy and what is the likelihood of that automation being viable and possible in automation. And you use data structure, you use how standard is the process, number of exceptions, and then qualitative benefits qualitative benefits to your internal and external clients. And what you have as an output, it's what should you focus on? And in this specific, which is an example, you want to focus on those automations that qualified and ranked at the top. That is basically your right top quadrant. Moving to the next chart. When you think about, engaging in a program that is going to grow from an automation standpoint, you want to make sure that you tap to the organization, right? Change management, and I'll talk to change management as I go through different charts, but you always want to have a place to go, right? And we are talking about technology, we're talking about transformation. So you want to make sure that you have a website, landing page, innovation portal, automation hub, where people can go in and provide ideas. And when you think about automation, you need to think about end-to-end, from idea through evaluation and assessment. I just touched about assessment, and then qualification, approval, and then solution design, development, deployment to production, hypercare, and then supporting and maintaining your automations once in production. And you want to make sure as you go and look at this end-to-end, you think about reusable assets. So reusable assets is something that organizations are missing, and reusable assets come in many shapes and forms. And what that basically means is once you developed automations and once you have automations in production, there are components of that automation that nobody's aware of. So when you think about marketing your automation efforts, it's not about asking people what do you want to automate. It's about showcasing, specific elements of larger automations that many organizations can use in terms of login, in terms of downloading reports, in terms of accessing ERPs. So this reusable asset concept is something that you want to think about as you try to scale your program. Moving to the next chart. I want to touch on technology, right? So we first set the context. Discovery is critical. No automation program is going to scale if you don't focus on discovery. And discovery, going back to the basics, it needs to have a methodology. It needs to have an agreed set of elements with quantitative ways of looking at it. But then what do you do when people is not telling you ideas? People is not giving you further ideas. That's where process and task mining come into place. So these are technologies that operate at different layers, right? So first, process mining, very simple. Process mining connects to ERPs, CRMs, and any enterprise system. And what it basically does, either through logs or either to execution of transactions, extracts a lot of data. And through looking at this multiple times, it allows you to look at how the process operates. And I'm going to talk a little bit about in detail about what process mining is going to do for your organization. But the difference between process and task mining is basically process is going to look at the end-to-end, and it's going to give you an idea for how transactions happen in your ERP, CRMs, and so forth. And task mining, it's more specific to a department. You deploy to a set of individuals, and those individuals are going to be deployed with agents in their computers. They are going to start executing transactions for quite a period of time. And then you collect data, you understand data, analyze, and then display it to identify opportunities for automation. But process mining happens at the system, enterprise system level. Task mining happens at the department people level. Going to the next chart, process mining, again, connecting to logs, right? Taking advantage of predefined frameworks. So in essence is not only pulling transactional data from ERPs, but also mapping the data to predefined frameworks from an order to cash perspective, procure to pay, hard to retire, and then understanding the flow of transactions. You can understand the happy path, different paths, allows you to display bottlenecks in the process, churns, how many rework happens in the process, and then opportunities to do continuous improvement. So when you think about process mining, this is a Lean Six Sigma project on steroids, a Lean Six Sigma project that is going to help you through technology understand what's really happening. And this goes back to what the organization is not telling you. Typically, when you just run manual Lean Six Sigma approaches, what you are going to find is when you do your value stream mapping, you are going to map what the team tells you. You are not going to map what they're not telling you. You are not going to map the number of exceptions, reworks, and bottlenecks. And what process mining is going to help you with, it's mapping those and displaying those, very similar to value stream mapping, but with real specific data. Task mining. Task mining again, right? Success cases. So these are 3 examples. One in the accounts receivable space, procure to pay and on-time delivery, where, for example, Kraft Heinz used process mining to reduce overpayments, right? And I like a lot this example, because instead of just automating for the sake of it, by using process mining, the teams were able to identify that there was this SAP field continuously being populated and updated, but that was down in the downstream process that was never used. So a business decision took place, right? You didn't invest in further automation technology. What you basically did, right, is you simplified, eliminated waste from your process, which is pretty much the Lean Six Sigma approach. Moving to the next chart. Task mining. So as I mentioned, right, task mining is at the department level. So you go and talk to your accounts receivable, accounts payable, employee support team, and you explain, right? What we're trying to do is to discover across the organization, across a number of individuals. You select the right universe, which is normally between 5 to 7 individuals. You are going to deploy a software in their computer, and they are going to operate for 2 weeks. And that's going to give you lots of data. There's machine learning engines built into most of the task mining tools. And then you're going to analyze what are the daily tasks of the employee. You are going to map actions in the different systems, Excel, ERP, email, web pages, and that's going to be mapped from a process perspective, linked from a process perspective. You are going to need subject matter experts. Those subject matter experts are going to help you understand what the data is telling you. You are going to reshape the data. You are going to find that there are different paths, right, to get things done. It's going to give you a great mechanism to standardize your process. Again, going back to Lean Six Sigma approaches, right? It's going to give you data so you can identify that different individuals process transactions, same transaction in different ways, using different steps and taking different times. And that's going to help you to understand, again, what is the best way of doing it, and then talking to SMEs, talking to transformation teams to identify the best way to execute transactions. But moreover, it's going to give you a pre-solution design document that is going to point you to where the best path for automation is. So task mining is going to give you a perfect outcome to run your RPA automation programs. Going to the next chart, this is just a few examples, right? For example, Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, they used task mining to look at the return management process. So from an order management perspective and rebates point of view, they were able to save roughly 90,000 hours a year. And they looked across, 32 sub-processes around the world, right? So when I said more than 400 users, and I meant that you go and run individual projects for each country, and then you aggregate the information from the different countries and teams to come up, with a greater business case around task mining. So let me pause here, right? Phil, any additional comments before I move to the next section?
Well, I don't see any questions yet, but no, I mean, the key thing is the distinction between end-to-end process and task, and it's fundamental. I think Chewy's explained that. And these tools are obviously additional to your own transformation programs. Okay, so they're not nirvana tools, but they're enablers. Along, as Chewy said, they sort of expand on the classic end-to-end process transformation, Lean Six Sigma, etc. But what they're very good at doing is identifying opportunities in a very controlled, fast fashion, and helping you to determine the ROI because they give volumes and data and metrics, etc., which is more difficult to come across if you do it manually. So these are just some of the tools to enable you, they're helping you with your, as I said right at the start, your business process improvement opportunities. And I've been doing this a long time, and the difference between an organization that follows an end-to-end seamless process and one that doesn't, I mean, it's chalk and cheese, and these tools are really beneficial and helpful in speeding up that automation possibility and opportunity. So and we see a lot more organizations using these tools. Of course, the cost of them is a factor. Some of the process mining tools used to be quite expensive. They've come down, and you need to be really focused and understand where and how to use these tools. But that's the only thing I would add for the moment, Chewy.
And I'm just going to add a little bit about your comment about business transformation as an overall. These are not here to replace business transformation. Business transformation is driven by the organization, and business transformation is even a broader concept. These are actually part of the toolkit for if you have a continuous improvement office, if you have an innovation office where Lean Six Sigma or design thinking projects are run. These technologies are not supposed to replace that. These technologies are supposed to help those organizations to get faster to the answer, right? Are enablers, and who needs to use the technology are these, transformation teams. And also from a broader business transformation perspective, we're running, upgrades in ERPs or adding new technology components to your stack, to your technology stack. This becomes your toolkit. This is not a replacement of any given, innovation or business transformation office. So yeah, let's move to next chart. Oh, polling question. So Tim, as Lee mentioned before, we would like you to participate. Get ready with your cell phones, and then what you're gonna basically do is you're gonna scan the QR code, and then it's gonna link you to a web page. And in the web page, you're gonna be able to see the question and select the answer. So we'd like to hear from you. So we'll give it another 30 seconds, and then we can look at the responses. The more you participate, the better, by the way. So thank you. All right, Lee, I think we're ready to see the answers. All right. So yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, keeps changing. This is good. So yeah, it's good to see, right, that the audience today, you have a methodology in place. So either from a RPA manual process assessment or linking this into the broader Lean Six Sigma projects, it's what you are doing today. So I think the idea of sharing with you what Automation Hub can do for you, what process and task mining can come for the future, right? As you're trying to take your automation programs to the next level, poking at and understanding further what task mining can do for departments and groups, and what process mining can do at the enterprise process level is gonna, help you accelerate.
I would add, Chewy, and of course this is only a sample within a call, but the fact there's nothing on Automation Hub is not a surprise, because this concept of Automation Hub and people putting ideas in that you were touching on is really quite new, and organizations are trying to understand and develop that. So that's not surprising per se, but obviously would like to see that coming up, because then it's this whole thing about citizen development and engagement across the organization is sort of linked to the Automation Hub to some degree, because you're getting ideas and collaboration coming through a controlled sharing tool. And that's what really Automation Hub is partly there to achieve. And of course, task mining and process mining at the bottom here are specific tools rather than necessarily ways of discovery themselves. They're sort of discovery tools once you decide you want to discover something, if you see what I mean. So yeah, that was it, Chewy. No other comments.
Well, I think you touched on a very important point, Phil, which is process mining, task mining, natural evolution of your automation programs. Once you're ready to use those technology enablers, Automation Hub, I would say it's almost like a must these days, Phil, because that's how you really connect to the organization. That's where you have your single repository to really manage end-to-end life cycle of automations. That's how you promote and start, marketing the idea of more and more complex automations and engaging the organization, because at the end of the day, this is all about people, process, and platform. And how do you engage people to feel eager, right? To provide ideas, to understand more about RPA, to get trained, to become part of discovery projects. So yeah, Automation Hub, I think it's something that, we would expect to see growing very quickly in the upcoming months.
Yeah, agreed, but people don't really understand it yet when we talk. So that's the education part. What going forward, we need to explain what Automation Hub means and entails and requires. So it's extension of COEs and things like that. But that's, yeah, I agree with you, but it's an area of definite focus going forward.
Good. Okay, so let's move to chatbots, right? And chatbots, it's quite a unique topic, right? Because we not only talk about chatbots, we interact with chatbots today, right? Today, anytime you browse to a web page, there's going to be a small window showing up there and asking you, how can I help you? So those are chatbots trying to connect with you. From a definitions and standpoint, we want to keep it very simple. So moving to the next chart, we have so chatbot. At the end of the day, right, just as in the case of task process mining and Automation Hub, is software. So chatbot is software. And it's software that is used to simulate what a human does and how a human would respond to you, even in the form of text or in the form of voice. So it's quite simple. It's how would I respond to a question to someone over the phone or on text? And you are going to find that you can have what I would call the very basic chatbots. And the most basic chatbots, they don't have artificial intelligence engines built in it. What it has, it's a predefined number of questions with a predefined number of answers. And then once you get your first answer, you have possible and multiple questions that can come up out of it. And that's how you start building your tree over and over without necessarily using tools for artificial intelligence, such as natural process language, which are engines that are built out there to interpret what we want to say. So the very basic chatbots differ from the more advanced chatbots just in the way they use technology. And in the most simple form of chatbots, you're just going to have, questions and options to choose from. And when you start adding other technological components like NPL, as I mentioned, then the chatbot is going to make an effort, right, to understand what you're trying to say without necessarily having to choose or pick from the options displayed. And when you think about chatbots, you need to start thinking about chatbots in the broader sense. And that's why it becomes increasingly important, the differentiation between basic and advanced. Because sometimes organizations fear that jumping into a chatbot project is going to mean huge expense. It's going to mean significant investment. It's going to mean hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it done. And when you think about the basic chatbot, you are thinking about, just as in the case of RPA, very short-term projects, 1 to 3 months, and very quick return on investment. very quick return on investment, which is less than 1 year. And then when you start, so think about it this way, your very basic chatbot, and then that chatbot starts interacting with bots as well. That's not even visible, right, to the client, either internal or external client. But then when you start inquiring about what is my order, when you start asking about update my information, when you start asking about where is my balance, that's where the chatbot triggers other things behind the scenes. And that's typically bots that can interact with ERPs, financial systems, HR systems, and provide data back to the chatbot, so the chatbot can communicate back to the human. So moving to next chart, this is just an example on how you wanna think about orchestration. So we've talked a lot about RPA, right? RPA is automating repetitive, mundane tasks, boring tasks, so you can have virtual agents performing those type of transactions on behalf of humans. That's very simple to understand. RPA, it's been out there for a long time. How RPA can then connect to chatbot, it's quite interesting, right? Because your RPA is already communicating and interacting with CRMs, with HR, with ERPs. So how do you plug a chatbot in the middle between your internal or external client, so you can have a mechanism to provide and get information from customers, and this chatbot through APIs connecting to RPA and RPA interacting, right, in the form of scrapping information, looking at metrics, so just using simple APIs. So when you start thinking about your first set of projects, chatbots are normally standalone, like the very simples that I mentioned. But as you start scaling, you get into the more artificial intelligence connected with RPA type of bots. And that's, I think, the next example, which in this case, we just mentioned how employees internally asking a simple HR question, right? And the beauty of chatbots is that they're very flexible. So if you have instant messaging, which is your corporate instant messaging, the chatbot can be plugged into that. If you use tools like WhatsApp as a mechanism to connect with organizations, internal and external, it can be easily plugged in WhatsApp, and you name it, right? Any given messaging system from big players like Microsoft, through Oracle, through Google, they are easily plugged, and you can easily display data through any given, talking about, again, multi-channel, right? This is a multi-channel play. So plug it, simple processes, just as in any other given transformation project, pilot it, right? Go for and I go back to the very basics, right? When I initiated our conversation today, I talked about discovery, right? So it's very important that you link, quantitative and qualitative benefits to the idea of a chatbot. So once you get started, you pick those ones that are your low-hanging fruit, that are going to provide your quick return on investment, but that are not going to be very complex in terms of deploying those. And you end up with, just like in the case of RPA, with projects that you can run in anywhere between 1 to 3 months, and that, as I mentioned, are going to be quick return on investment within the same day. And then you start moving to more intelligent chatbots, right? Chatbots that can either interact with APIs, or chatbots that can, use machine learning, artificial intelligence like engines, and that are going to help you interpret, even feelings or even, unstructured data. We're actually testing just recently chatbots that can help you understand images, right? So images, photos, pictures that are sent by store managers saying, this is my shelf, this is how my shelf looks like. And then your machine learning engine providing recommendation or things that are missing in the shelves, either from a pricing standpoint, from a product standpoint, or from an arrangement standpoint. So more and more, the combination of your intelligent document processing or image processing with the chatbot and with the RPA, it's helping organizations to really standardize, in this specific example, how shelves look at the store level. So moving to next chart, please. A few examples. This bike using conversational chatbots to answer customer queries and focus on complicated ones, save over 40 hours a month, but also improve KPIs and also improve not only KPIs from an operational standpoint, but in terms of NPS, net promoter stop, overall customer satisfaction. We experience also a big increase and improvement here. Appointment scheduling, right? European Union citizen that wanted to travel by train used chatbots with their frequently asked questions available in different time zones. And just in the first month, the chatbots solved over 700 questions and handled over 150 live support agents. The beauty of it is once you get a chatbot deployed, you can train the chatbot, right? So the more you start getting into situations where the chatbot is deferring the conversation to an agent, you do root cause analysis to understand what were the key questions or reasons why the chatbot could not handle the request. And then you reprogram or retrain the chatbot. So when similar inquiries come into the chatbot in the future, the chatbot is able to handle. And as I mentioned, multi-channel, right? There's an example here about WhatsApp. So yeah, you can name it Teams from Microsoft, WhatsApp, multiple channels that where you can plug and deploy the interaction with humans. All right, so I'm gonna move to the next section, but before I do that, any other questions so far from the team, from the audience? Any commentary, Phil, about chatbots?
Not specifically at this point. I'm just checking there's no specific questions, Chewy, and just looking at the time. Let's take the polling question and then move to the last section. And hopefully, if anyone's questions, we can save a few minutes at the end for that. So let's do that.
All right. So again, please participate. Cell phones again. Look at the QR code. It's gonna take you to a web page. It's going to give you the options. This is a question about chatbots. What are you trying to do, or what are you currently doing with chatbots? We would like to hear from you. And we're going to give it 30 more seconds just so everybody can look at it, answer. So Lee, I think we can go back to the responses. Good. So we have GBS shared services teams participating. Glad to hear that. And this goes back to the idea of self-service, right? So in the old days, self-service meant you have to go through the web page and figure things yourself. Today, moving through a true, client-centric self-service world, right? So shared services and GBSs are here for a reason, to serve internal clients as if they were external clients. So many chatbots have been deployed to external customers and external clients, but more and more we see a growing trend of GBSs and shared service centers using chatbot technology to improve the experience for the organizations and also to drive through self-services projects in the form and combining, right, chatbots with other self-service tools. So yeah, customer care, very popular use cases. Employee contact chatbot, supplier vendor inquiries. This is all good to see. More and more, right? If you think about it, customer care and customer support chatbots have grown tremendously over the past few years. But now, just as we learn more about chatbots, just as we learn more about what works and what doesn't work, the idea of using chatbots as a mechanism to connect internally in the organization is becoming very popular. And I was surprised to see that there are no IT support chatbots, but yeah, we also from a project standpoint in recent projects, we see a growing trend of using chatbots for basic IT inquiries and basic IT support. All right, moving to the next section, Lee, please. Business intelligence. Good. So I'm going to talk about business intelligence from different angles. But first of all, definitions. So as an overall, right? As an overall definition, analytics and business intelligence, it's, again, don't think about when we hear analytics, when we hear business intelligence, when we hear advanced business intelligence, the first thing that comes to mind is technology. And the way we need to think about it when you talk about analytics and business intelligence is an ecosystem. It's a combination, again, of people, process, and platform, because without people, you don't have BI. Without people, you don't have advanced analytics. And process, right? What type of processes you want to look like, and what are the sequence of the events that need to happen for a business intelligence project to come into life. And it's about evaluating and analyzing data, and it's about transforming the way you operate, right? Because it's not about plugging dashboards for the sake of it. It's about changing the way organizations think about providing services. It's about how organizations think about increasing sales, how organizations think about looking for ways to become more efficient, and how, at the end of the day, improve your overall customer experience. So think about it always in the broader sense as the combination of people, process, and platform. And what are the different components, right? And it's not that they come in isolation, but it is important to differentiate data science, right? It's about using lots of data unstructured to come up with recommendation, and to be able to first to predict, right, how things are going to happen, and based on trends, how things are going to shape in the future, and also become predictive, right? So what are the type of actions that you can take upfront, right, before coming to a point where something is not working from a sales perspective or from an operational perspective. Data analytics is about mining and understanding data and using data, right, to identify opportunities for improvement in any given organization and in any given business process. And business intelligence is more on your descriptive side of the house, which is displaying operationally how, for example, right, in the case of GBS and shared service centers, we know that metrics are very important. We know that KPIs are critical to communicate back to the business, to understand our service levels, to understand those critical operational metrics that are relevant to the business, and being able to communicate that real time, being able to display that real time, even when you talk about, you know, your monthly reviews, right? In the old days, your PowerPoint, in the most older days, your foils. Today you can do it real life, and the beauty of you know, embarking in a business intelligence project is that you're going to start finding that by tapping into the right set of skills within your organization and selecting the right technologies, you're going to have, again, quick wins. And always remember, just as we talked about RPA, just as I mentioned the example of chatbots, your business intelligence projects, they don't need to come necessarily as a huge multi-year project, but rather small pilots. They need to be consistent. They need to be governed. But at the end of the day, running those small pilots, when it comes down to selecting which type of data or which type of dashboards you want to display first, always go back to, you know, evaluating and identifying use cases and coming up with a way of ranking and assigning ranks and assigning numeric values to those opportunities for business intelligence. So at the end, right, in its aggregate, you're going to start building first from the basics, from your very basic data points, and they start growing to more aggregated and holistic dashboards. Going to the next chart. So this is just a quick overview of the marketplace. I'm not going to talk specifically to each one of the technologies, but there's always information out there that is relevant. Who's becoming, the lead player from a business intelligence standpoint? Top two players, Microsoft and Tableau, of course. However, there are other growing players like QuickLink. From a user's perspective, right? These are the demographics where you see 40% of the users of business intelligence are in companies between $50 million to $1 billion worth of revenue, annual revenues. From an industry perspective, it's widely used, but IT companies are adopting more and more. Lots of advanced analytics, business intelligence, and data science like work. Banking, health, and manufacturing just behind. And from a regional perspective, most of the big projects that we see shaping these days are taking place in North America with 42%, followed by Asia 18%, EMEA 14%, and last but not least, Latin America with 6%. Trying to connect a few dots, right? We talked about automation, we talked about chatbots, we talked about process and task mining, which would seem isolated pieces of technology and enablers, but how do you start connecting those, right? How do you start connecting those in a way that makes sense for you? And that's where BI comes into play. So when you think about all those automations that you have deployed in the organization, if you deploy chatbots as well, if you run any process or task mining, how do you get visibility over those automations in production, chatbots in production, task mining and process mining project? That's your BI layer, right? How do you create a layer of information on the top that can tell you which automations are working and how? That can tell you what are the real-time savings for the organization based on the number of transactions being executed by your automations. Even compliance or qualitative benefits that can also be displayed in your what I call intelligent automation dashboard. And always keep in mind that as you put that layer on the top, you're going to start finding interesting facts, right? How are you using your licenses, right? What was the original business case expectation in terms of the number of transactions or percentage of transactions that a bot would be able to process, and what is happening in the real world? What is happening once the automation is in production? If that automation is not processing, it's only processing 60–70% of the transactions, why haven't you plugged machine learning into that automation so you can learn why are you having 30–40% exceptions that bot is not able to manage, and how do you retrain through machine learning that bot so you can through time grow your yield of successful transactions being processed. So keep that in mind, business intelligence layer on the top of your intelligent automation program. Business intelligent use cases, I mentioned the one used for intelligent automation, but of course, from a sales and business development and marketing perspective, there are a lot of great examples and use cases. Again, it's not about it's not about driving and trying to run your first set of projects very complex and very large. It's figuring out the right use cases when you can plug the right processes, people, when you can plug the right technologies to start driving value to the organization. And this is just examples that you can read for yourself. But, for example, Coca-Cola from a BI standpoint, from a reporting standpoint, being able to save around 260 hours a year. So of course, savings associated with business intelligence, business analytics projects, but at the end of the day, it's increasing the level of visibility in the organization and creating a strategy in the long term, and moving from descriptive to prescriptive in the organization. It's using the data in the right ways. And what we're seeing is that shared service centers and GBS centers, they have a lot of the unused data, transactional data that haven't been tapped to provide insights back to the business. So there's a big opportunity for shared service centers and GBSs to become, I'm not going to say the owner, but the driver, right? The leading partner in the organization to provide insights to sales, to marketing, to operations. Next chart. So very quickly, right? Since I want to leave time for questions and answers. Center of Excellence. So again, just wrapping up. Either you are talking about chatbots or business intelligence or task mining or process mining, always think about governance. You can launch projects in any given technology space without a center of excellence. But if you really want to expand, if you really want to accelerate, if you really want to scale, you need to think about governance. What are those set of processes and organizations that need to come together to provide value to the business in the form of a center of excellence or center of expertise? And remember, I mentioned Automation Hub, and Automation Hub in the concept of managing end-to-end life cycle of an automation. That's what a COE does, right? It's a governed body that is going to set the standards and is going to look after the discovery, going to look after solution designs, is going to look after the development of the solutions, the deployment of the production, the solutions into production, support and maintenance once in production. So looking at it from a process standpoint, it needs to be connected, right? You need to run it. You need to engage to the organization. That's why, again, right, Automation Hub is becoming increasingly important for organizations. And Automation Hub is a big enabler for COEs to mature through time and to have a single point of connection with the organization. Moving to the next chart. Citizen development, right? I mean, once you're up and running, once you want to scale, you need to use enablers. And we talked about enablers for discovery, like process and task mining, but another key enabler, it's citizen development. How do you equip individuals, right, to drive their own automations? How do you equip individuals to create their own dashboards, right? Because you can talk about independently, I'm just talking about RPA or I'm talking business intelligence, but it applies to both, right? How do you empower and equip individuals so they can produce their own automations or dashboards to increase efficiency from an automation standpoint and to increase visibility from a BI point of view? So citizen developers, you need to watch it. It goes back to governance. Citizen development efforts, if isolated, if not connected to a greater COE, if not connected to a greater CFO play, are most likely it's going to fail. So you need to empower individuals, train individuals, but also connect to the larger governance when it comes down to automation and when it comes down to business intelligence. Change management critical, right? Change management, and regardless of the technology stack that you're talking about, regardless of the business transformation or technology transformation project, change management needs to come into place. Right? Effective stakeholder management, you need to clearly identify what are the objectives, understanding that communication is critical. And when it comes down to communication, is communicate, communicate, communicate. But the 3 C's is communicate, consult, and collaborate with the organization. How do you engage employees, either in the form of just submitting ideas or in the form of citizen development? It's all a journey, but change management, it's critical to the success of any given BI or intelligent automation program. Do we have any other polling question? Last polling question. So from a governance standpoint, we would be very interested to hear from you, right? Who's managing and who's governing, who's controlling, leading your in either automation or business intelligence programs. The question is about operational models for automation and for advanced business intelligence. Who owns it? Is it owned by IT? Is it owned by GBS or shared services? Is it hybrid? no COE in place. So let's give it another 20 seconds. Lee, please. All right. Okay, yeah. So no surprise to see that there are still organizations that have not yet decided, for very valid reasons, to deploy a COE. COE is owned by IT. That's how COEs were in the first place created. And a growing trend, right? And we spoke about it in past webinars. We see that due to the transactional nature of GBS and shared service centers, and due to the fact that there's huge, potential in using information processed by shared service centers and GBS, COEs are being created. So from becoming big consumers of automation to becoming students of automation and business intelligence to really leading digital transformation, business intelligence, and RPA programs. So yeah, growing trend that, moving, that COEs are moving towards GBS centers and towards shared service centers. Phil, we only have 3 minutes. I don't know if you have final commentaries. I think this is the end. And of course,
yeah. So we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I mean, hopefully this is very helpful content for everyone who attended in terms of trying to really focus in on three main specific areas around hyper automation. But it links back, as Chewy was closing there, around the importance of governance, COE, and structure, change management. But it's also linked to empowerment and leveraging the latest in technology, because it's available now to individuals, but it needs to be done and employees and staff and team members. It needs to be done in a controlled fashion. Otherwise, it's a sort of free for all. So it's getting the balance between the governance and the COE and the structure, the change management, and empowering the automation, which could be done on the desktop through to end-to-end processes through. So it's about getting the structures right. So you need to understand the technologies available. You need to understand how they link together. You need to think about how you're going to deploy them. You need to think about link it to your business transformation programs and your Lean Six Sigma and your other processes. And we try to cover a lot of that today, but focus in on these three main areas, including dashboards at the end. So hopefully it's been very helpful. We've just got about a minute left, so probably won't have time to take any questions before we cut off. But if you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Chewy or Lee, and we're very happy to take those questions subsequently and come back to you at any time. But apart from that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining our webinar today. Hopefully it's been useful, and look forward to speaking to some of you hopefully in the near future. So thank you very much from me. And Chewy, I don't know if you had any closing comments.
Well, you will be receiving the presentation as well.
Yes.
And as Phil mentioned, just echoing what you just mentioned, Phil, I hope this was helpful. You have our contact, right? If there are any follow-up questions, any follow-up sessions that you would want to have, feel free to reach out. We're here to help.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.